I think it's been a fantastic day. We've had so much great conversation. We've spoken about brand, creativity, growth, impact, and of course, a little bit about AI. And I think sitting underneath all of this conversation is one very human question. In an AI-driven world, what actually still really matters? And for me, that is the human signal. It's that trust, judgment, taste, conviction behind the work. Because as more of the marketing system becomes automated, that all becomes, the human signal becomes much harder to fake, right? And it becomes far more important to protect. So today I want to explore the balance where AI can give us speed, productivity, intelligence, but where human judgment, taste, and conviction still have to lead. Now, every CMO that I speak with is living inside this same tension. We're being asked to deliver more growth, more impact, more efficiency, more proof, all with less time, less budget, and sadly, with increasingly less headcount. So when AI comes along and lands in that environment, of course, it's super attractive because it promises speed, scale, and efficiency. But often it does deliver all of that really, really well. But are we using AI to make our marketing better or just simply make more of it? Now, if your strategy is weak, more is not more progress, it's just noise at scale. And that's why the conversation matters so much, because most of us in this room, we're not afraid of AI, we're actually just afraid of using it really badly, right? We're afraid of, being under this constant pressure to deliver more with less. Bad use can actually start to look a lot like efficiency. So the bigger question for us really is, do our teams have the skills they need to use AI really well? Now let me ground that in what I've been hearing from the broader CMO community. Over the past year, I've been super lucky to be part of a Chatham House Rules group of over 40 global CMOs, and we've been tackling different questions. And one of them has been this: are our teams truly ready to use AI well? The pattern was very clear: beliefs high, readiness is not. So 100% agree that AI is essential to the future of marketing. The issue is not whether leaders believe in AI, they absolutely do, but over 2/3 did not believe their teams had the AI skills that they actually need. And 90% said they're struggling to keep pace, which of course is not surprising at all. So when then Gartner found that only 5% of marketers that were using generative AI solely as a tool actually saw any significant gains in business outcomes, it didn't surprise me at all. Just 5%. Not because the tools didn't work, but because too many organisations are just bolting them onto systems and processes and habits that were never built for them. And that's the gap. It's not adoption, not belief, it's readiness. And readiness, when you think about it, is really a leadership problem. It's not a technology problem. Because when the belief is high and the pressure's high and readiness is low, the risk is not that AI gets ignored, it is that it gets used really badly. Now put those things together, pressure, belief, and a readiness gap, and you can see why many organisations begin in the most obvious place. They just use AI to produce more. More content, more versions, with more speed. And look, there's nothing wrong with that really as a starting point. But the problem is, as I know we all know in this room, AI is really good at generating what is likely. But the problem is, distinctive brands are built through choices, not averages. So if we use AI without strong human direction, we don't become distinctive. We just risk giving mediocrity a better operating system. Now, for years, this industry and many of us here in this room have been trying really hard to move B2B away from sameness, away from the rational, the functional, the transactional, the forgettable. And we've seen more evidence this week that we're really making progress. But when everyone has access to the same tools, the advantage moves back to the quality of the thinking behind them. If the strategy is unclear AI will scale the confusion. If the brand's generic, it's just going to make that more obvious. And if there's no distinctive point of view, automation is not going to create one. In that sense, AI becomes a bit of a truth serum for the brand, and I'm sure some of you have heard that expression already this week. It really kind of reveals whether there's something true underneath. And too often, what gets called as an AI strategy is actually just, we've bought the tools, we haven't actually done the thinking behind it. So before I go on, and this is going to give you some energy, I'm going to show you what the opposite of sameness looks like. This is the opposite of average, how the human signal really shows through in the work. I had the absolute privilege of being the jury president for Creative B2B as it made its debut at Spikes Asia a couple of months ago. And this piece of work from Japan really stood out. Let's have a look and you'll absolutely see why.
Airman is a B2B company with headquarters in Niigata, Japan, and a leading manufacturer of air compressors, which are essential equipment for construction sites. However, they were facing a challenge. Their company totally lacked brand awareness. Despite being a company with the world's second largest market share, they could not see results in new business sales and recruitment. So we devised an idea that completely overturned the approach to advertising. We would turn the CEO into a hero. Airman. This bold concept marked the beginning of the Airman project. We cast the actual CEO as the star of a commercial and produced a drama TVC set in our hometown of Niigata. We reimagined the Airman brand, which supports the world from the construction sites yet remains unknown, as an unsung hero, secretly helping people in need. By filming entirely on location and involving local residents, we created a one-of-a-kind local brand where the company and the region are deeply connected. This initiative was featured in numerous media outlets, generating immense PR value. Brand recognition skyrocketed. There was a surge in young talent eager to work for Airman. Above all, the commercial served as a powerful icebreaker in negotiations, dramatically improving sales efficiency. Yes, the CEO of Airman had become a local influencer. The Airman project demonstrated a new possibility in B2B communication, one that does not rely on celebrities or high-budget production. This approach, where the CEO becomes the influencer, may become a benchmark for the future of business communication. Once again, a Airman is working hard to help the people of the community.
Yeah. You know, air compressors, right? It could have been the easiest category in the world to make it sound like every other industrial brand. Functional, rational, and very useful, but completely forgettable. But instead, they made it really brave and alive with personality. And I promise you'll be humming that Airman song later today. Now, especially in a category where brands can be interchangeable, that's a really serious commercial advantage. But distinctiveness doesn't happen by accident. It depends on the choices we make. The choice to give a functional brand a recognizable personality, to sound like ourselves, not like the category. The choice to protect what makes the work truly memorable. Because AI will happily produce the language of the category, but it won't fight for the soul of the brand. Sameness is often disguised as seriousness in B2B, and AI can make that disguise far easier to produce. And there's another layer to this now, of course, that we've spoken a little bit about today, because increasingly our content is not just for a human audience. It's being read, interpreted, and summarized by machines. But AI can only work with the signals that we give it. If the brand has no recognizable brand voice, no clear point of view of character, then there's nothing distinctive for AI to carry forward. Because when the brand's not clear enough to guide the tools will start to guide the brand. Which brings me to the 3 common missteps I see when AI starts to enter a marketing system. And I think we have to be honest about these, because these are not really technology problems. They're leadership problems that AI exposes more easily. So the first is confusing acceleration with strategy. Teams move faster, there's more options, there's more content in market, but activity is not the same as strategy. It can sometimes just be productivity theatre, right? I think we can all probably think of productivity theatre in our own organisations. So AI can accelerate that output, but it cannot supply the strategy. The second mistake is letting the dashboards become the brief. We also spoke a little bit about this earlier today. That happens when the easiest things to measure start driving the work. So we've all seen it: traffic, clicks, leads. Those metrics do matter, but they're not the whole brief. And the dashboards really can tell us what has moved, but they're not telling us what mattered necessarily. And the third mistake that I get quite passionate about is removing junior roles instead of just redesigning them. Because if AI is doing more of the doing, then where do our junior people learn all of these really important skills like judgment? The fastest way for us to lose the next generation of marketing leadership is to just delete the bottom rung. The answer is better designed junior roles, because the future skill is not going to be about whether they can use AI or not. It's about knowing how to judge, how to shape, and how to improve what AI is giving us. So this apprenticeship layer has to evolve. But this is where that apprenticeship gets quite complicated, because AI can make people feel pretty capable very quickly. Sometimes that's really empowering, but sometimes what it's actually doing is hiding the fact that judgment is not yet fully formed for our junior people. I saw that happen very clearly in one of my own teams. So before I joined Global Dairy Trade, I was CMO in Asia for Salesforce for 7 years, and I had this front row seat to generative AI being built into the marketing function across the organisation. Now, we were always very meticulous with our brand voice, and we're very, very conscious of that. But at some point, we started to embrace our new AI tools, and some AI-generated copy started to creep in. So one of my young content team, very talented, but still really building confidence in her own voice and her writing, found that the tool gave her this sense of reassurance, and so she lent more and more into it. And I totally understood why. But then one day, of course, I caught a LinkedIn post after it had gone out, and it wasn't a disaster, but it just did not sound like us at all. The polish was there, the voice, the brand voice just wasn't. And that was when it hit me. AI hadn't lowered our standard, just removing the human had. And so all we had to do was put the human back in that loop. So not more judgment or more control, but just better human intervention at the right point. Because the answer is absolutely not to stop our younger team members using AI, because that would be impractical and frankly it'd be wrong. The answer is to keep them close to the standards, the judgment, the questioning and editing and the taste making that help us get the better outcome and help their judgment develop. Because confidence is not the same as judgment, and fluency with the tools is not the same as fluency in our craft. And that's really, really important. Because AI will always hand you a crutch if you let it. It's the human signal that you need to protect, and when you decide to put that crutch down. Oh, I'm going back, sorry. Wrong. I'm thinking, what is this clicker doing to me? And in B2B, AI is not the only crutch that we have to watch out for, because optimization can become one too. We're often under pressure to optimize for within the same quarter, right? Pipeline, conversion, performance, and AI is extraordinary at helping us do that, because it can help us test, personalize, predict, respond at a speed that we've never ever had before, and it's incredibly useful. But it becomes dangerous if optimization starts to dominate every decision, because that optimization is working from what already exists, what's been clicked, converted, or performed. But creative ambition really needs to ask a different question. It needs to ask not what has worked before, but what could work next. And that's much harder for us to defend in B2B, because the value of trust, memory, fame, preference often shows up over time, certainly not neatly inside one quarter. And in fact, the most effective work often comes from resisting optimization altogether at the right moment. Sometimes the data tells us what people already recognize, but creativity has to imagine what they might come to value. So the discipline is not to reject optimization, it's just to know where it helps and where imagination still has to lead. And I do want to pause here for a moment and give the other side its due, because look, if we're honest, volume does work. Frequency and optimization works, and performance systems work. In a tough market, when there's a lot of pressure and it's a short quarter, flooding a market can absolutely work. And it can to win attention for sure. So I'm not here to pretend that that doesn't matter, because it does. But AI actually changes the economics of more. Because when everyone can produce more work faster and cheaper, volume stops being a differentiator altogether. The advantage moves back to the quality of the thinking, the sharpness of the point of view, the distinctiveness of the brand. The courage to make work that doesn't sound like everybody else's. In other words, it moves back to the human signal. So the question is not whether AI should change the way we work, because it obviously already has. The question is how much of the work will we allow it to change? So for me, it just starts with this one distinction. AI changes the how, but not the why. It changes the pace and the scale of the work, but it doesn't change the why, the reasons people choose us, what the brand should stand for, what will build trust, or what is worth remembering. That is still very, very human work. And to be clear, I'm certainly not arguing against AI, because I think it's quite extraordinary. It's great at removing friction, and it can collapse research time, surface patterns, personalised journeys, all those wonderful things that we know it can do. But the value is greatest when we are really clear about what kind of work we're asking it to do. The goal shouldn't be to use it less, it just needs to be using it more intelligently. So the discipline becomes really simple to say, but kind of hard to do. Automate the how, protect the why. Use AI where speed, consistency, and scale create value, but protect the places where meaning, trust, and judgment are being shaped. Because AI can raise the floor, human creativity still raises the ceiling. So here's a really simple decision lens. Automate the work that's repetitive, rules-based, and low judgment. The work where speed and consistency actually creates genuine value. Augment the work that benefits from AI, but still needs human interpretation. So things like research, your first drafts, insights, etc. And protect the work that shapes meaning, trust, and reputation, the moments where the brand is making a real promise. Now, if we get this right, we actually create something quite remarkable for our teams, which is time and space to practice their craft. And this is how our ideas get better, how judgment develops, and how work becomes more brave, more human, and more impactful. And that's something I've had to think about very practically in my teams as well. At Salesforce, my team covered about 12 different countries. We had very familiar marketing problems. I'm sure this will sound familiar. It didn't matter how much enablement we delivered, we still got the same questions from our sales team. Oh, where's that asset? Can you create this content for me? What do I have to do at this event? So, very important questions, but very repetitive and very time consuming. So we saw an opportunity for automation. We built an AI agent in Slack. We connected it to our workflows, our content, our FAQs, and all of a sudden, this AI agent could answer all those questions for our sales teams. Textbook automation, right? Repetitive, rules-based, low judgment. And across the function, that sort of thinking as we were bringing these tools into it became very, very important. In the last sort of 18 months that I was at Salesforce, we had automated around 40% of all of our processes, which was pretty remarkable. But the number's not really the point. The point is what that time back made possible. So that person in my team who used to answer all those sales questions was one of my most junior team members. And freeing her from that inbox didn't make her redundant. It just made her able to move up. So she started building more assets and actually getting more involved in the thinking and doing rather than just the doing. And that was amazing. AI took the drudgery away and we reinvested the time in her becoming a better marketer. And that for me is a leadership lesson. Automation doesn't remove the need for leadership. It exposes where leadership is missing. Because the technology now we know will always be able to answer the question. But leaders still have to decide what happens with the time and the talent that frees up. And I honestly feel so fortunate about having built over time, not just fluency in how to build agents, scale workflows and connect AI to the right data, but fluency in knowing where AI creates leverage, but where it terribly falls over when you take a human out of the loop. And so now I've taken that fluency into global dairy trade. You know, I'm just 2 months into my new role. I've walked into this incredible business, their first ever CMO, 18 years of commercial success, and I get the opportunity to build a world-class brand on a clean canvas. So it's an incredible opportunity. But needless to say, we have not automated anything yet. But we will. The opportunity is clear. We'll use AI and automation to take friction out of the system so we can create more space for the strategic and creative craft that the brand so desperately needs. For me, that's the point. Automation is oxygen for the craft, not a replacement for it. And when technology is used really well, that's what it should be. It shouldn't flatten the work, it shouldn't replace the judgment, but it should give human insight more power in the world. Now, Airman showed us one expression of the human signal: personality, memory, and preference. Now let's look at another example where the tools have been used in the service of a better human outcome. I was lucky enough to be jury president last year for Creative B2B, and this piece of work shortlisted here, iFood, Recipe for Growth. It's where AI served as the enabler of the idea. So let's take a look.
64% of restaurants in Brazil are family-owned.
Restaurante sou eu, minha irmã e minha filha.
But unfortunately, knowing how to cook doesn't mean knowing how to run a business.
For iFood, restaurants means everything. When they do well, we do well. To see that 50% of restaurants close on their first 2 years is just not acceptable.
As Brazil's largest food delivery app, iFood processes over 120 million orders per month, generating billions of data points. Data that holds powerful insights and can help small restaurants operate smarter. This is Recipe for Growth, a digital tool that transforms iFood's data into an always evolving small restaurant management guide. Data about the restaurant, its location, consumer behavior, trends, and ingredient prices are transformed into actionable insights that can be easily implemented by restaurant owners. For example, it spots trends in other areas and suggests new potential hits for their menu.
Sabendo que tem prato em alta fora do meu raio de entrega, eu consigo me preparar e oferecer esse prato na região e antecipar a tendência.
It highlights top-performing dishes by profitability and suggests cutting high-cost, low-sale items.
Às vezes são dicas simples, mas a gente não enxerga sozinho.
It shows what sells best in each period, helping plan investments. It finds the best ingredient deals and connects owners directly with grocery suppliers. It even suggests ways to optimize staff and when and how to run promotions that will work best for each restaurant.
Agora eu tenho acesso a informações que antes só os grandes tinham.
With the objective to drive sales growth, increase margins, and decrease waste, Recipe for Growth has so far helped 3,000 small family-owned restaurants manage their business better.
Restaurants using Recipe for Growth are getting up to 40% more sales compared to those not yet using it.
Tomo decisões com confiança, não estou mais no escuro.
Recipe for Growth, using data to turn family dreams into better businesses.
So the creative leap here was to take all that data and ask, how can we use AI to turn that data into something genuinely useful for the restaurant owners who depend on us? Actually not dissimilar to Soil Stay, right? Using AI. So the data created the opportunity, AI made it usable at scale, but human insight was what made it really valuable. And that's the balance we just have to get right. AI should not be the star of the work. It should be the engine behind the work that feels more useful, more distinctive, and more trusted. And that word trusted is where all of this becomes commercially important, because in an AI world, trust becomes harder to earn precisely because content becomes easier to produce. More content or personalization does not automatically create more confidence and trust. And in B2B, that matters deeply. And if you're here this morning to listen to Jan and Mimi, you'll know exactly why. Because trust is not a soft brand attribute. It's part of the decision. Buyers are not just choosing a product, they are making a decision that they probably have to defend to their CFO, their CEO, possibly the board, the procurement team, and sometimes their own career rides on it. So the question is not only, is this the best solution? It's, can I trust this brand? Can I defend this choice? Will this reduce risk? This is buyability. The role of the brand is to make the decision feel safe, feel credible and defensible before the buyer is even ready to buy. And in an AI-mediated buying journey, that work starts even earlier. Buyers are asking LLMs questions before they speak to sales. Brands are being surfaced, summarised or excluded based on signals they do not fully control. So peer knowledge, third-party validation, expertise, reputation and authority. So the brand no longer is, it's not only about what you're saying about yourself, all right? It is what the market and increasingly the machines interpreting the market understand you to mean, which means the human signal matters even more. Because if the AI systems are going to interpret your brand, there'd better be something clear and consistent underneath for them to interpret. When the content can be almost infinite and trust is scarce, the defensible choice will always win. And this has really been the thread running through almost everything today. I have been here since 8 a.m. listening to every single presentation. And we've heard it, the pressure on the CMOs, the risk of sameness, the need for judgment, the value of craft and the importance of trust. AI can scale information and it may shape the shortlist, but meaning and trust still determine whether the brand deserves to be there. AI cannot manufacture conviction or invent a point of view that a brand doesn't already have. That substance, the work that is worth believing, remembering and choosing is the work we absolutely have to protect. So let me leave you with this. AI should raise the floor, should remove friction, scale what's useful and give teams time back, but the ceiling is still very, very human. Judgment, taste, empathy, conviction, that is the human signal. That is what makes the work worth believing, remembering and choosing. So as you go back to your own organisations, think about it. Look closely at where AI is entering the system. What is creating more space for your people to think? Where is it helping them see faster, move smarter and get closer to the customer? But where are places where you need more human in that signal? Because efficiency only creates value when it leaves room for meaning. And that's the work ahead of us, to use AI in ways that raise the bar for the work, not just lowering the cost to produce it. And if this is really the B2B decade, and you ask Tom Stein, he'll say it absolutely is, then this is our moment to decide what kind of B2B marketing we want to build. Not faster sameness, not cheaper output, but work with more ambition, more humanity, and more conviction. And I'm going to contradict what the earlier panel said. B2B has never been boring. It's just been underloved. So let's give it the love and the conviction it absolutely deserves. Thank you for being an engaged audience at the last session. I'd love to stay connected on LinkedIn, and if it's useful at all, I actually just published my B2B book last week, and it's available everywhere. So thank you so much, everyone.